Well, welcome everybody to this special midweek pre-draft edition of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Our guy Justin Kuzart is off today, but finally joining me here on the show, Mr. Andy Jordan. Follow him on Twitter at Andy Magic Minute. As you can see by the hat, if you're watching the video version, or the whole Magic Minute, that Andy's a big Magic fan. So we're gonna get into that here in a little bit. Oh, look at that! Even the cup, we're ready to go.
Man. All over.
But and more specifically, Andy has been watching the draft prospects for really half a year now, essentially. This is not, where we've kind of been in finals mode a little bit, breaking that down a little bit. Andy's really been watching these guys in and out. So I wanted to bring him here on the show and get his perspective on, the draft overall. We're going to talk a bunch of teams here. Of course, obviously going to talk some Magic. But I really, the first thing of the draft that I want to start with is, this one is more unique than other years in the sense that more often than not recently, we've seen that clear-cut number one, right? Last year, you have Cade Cunningham. A couple years ago, it was Zion. Very rarely is there kind of that controversy at the top. Like usually by now, there's that clear-cut number one guy. We're here going into the draft, which is, we're recording this on Monday morning, so we're 3 days away from the draft. There could very well be, realistically, to me, it's down to one of three guys. I know there's a little bit of smoke in a couple of other places, but, realistically, this is going to be one of the going number one, Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, or Paolo Banchero. And so before we, get into the Magic themselves of where you think to go in that direction, I just want to kind of start with these guys individually because, again, depending on whose big board you're looking at, this has fluctuated for quite a bit now. And so I'm going to start with Jabari Smith because Jabari Smith just happened to be the first guy the Magic worked out. Full disclosure, he's who I think they are going to take at one. But we'll see what happens here. But, obviously Jabari Smith, the forward, talk about what do you like about his game? What do you think would translate well here in the NBA? If there's any downside to Jabari Smith at one, what do you think it would be?
Yeah, so Jabari Smith started off strong in the beginning of the year and never really slowed down, right? I think that's why he eventually became a number one prospect or top three prospect. He never really slowed down, right? He just kind of kept going there. So big things about him, obviously his size, right? He's 6'10". He's an incredible shooter. I think he shot like 42% from three in college, took a high volume of shots, right? So not the greatest in the paint, but again, that could be mainly because of his style of game. He kind of just hovered in the three-point line and did mid-range. Tremendous defensive potential. A gym rat by all accounts, right? Everybody just raves about how dedicated he is. And you can tell on the defensive side. Defensive for me is it's mainly effort, right? A perfect example of this, if you saw it, is Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins in Minnesota couldn't guard anyone. Not that he couldn't. He didn't want to. He gets to Golden State, all of a sudden everything changes, and here he is, a defensive pest. So I think coming into the skill set, Jabari already has that. And I think that's what makes him an interesting prospect. Two of the things that he's best at, 9 times out of 10 translate to the NBA. He's an elite shooter. He's a defensive player. At worst, his floor is a high-level 3-and-D guy. So I think he is the safest pick by all accounts. I'll talk about why I think he fits the Magic later on, but I think by all accounts, he's probably the safest pick. And he's a good player, man. He's solid, he's smart, and he's the youngest. He just turned 19 back in May. So I think that's a big leg up on someone like Chet that's already above that age, someone like Paolo. When you look at the top three guys, Jabari is just turned 19. So everything he did last year was as an 18-year-old. That's pretty impressive when you look at him.
Oh, and even into the tourney, I just remember him confidently stepping into shots. And like you said, with his age, those are the type of shots, like he looked like he was ready for the NBA. When you're watching D1 college ball, obviously these guys are some of the best in the country, but you kind of can see those moments where, obviously to keep it with Orlando, with Jalen Suggs, that sequence where he had the block and then got down the floor where it was just like, oh yeah, this kid's an NBA guy. Like there's a reason he's number one, or, in that top 5, I should say, in terms of prospects in that draft. I kind of felt like there were a couple of those moments, even though, obviously they didn't win the title or anything at Arkansas, but it felt like Jabari Smith had that confidence, and that obviously is key. And like you said, 3-and-D is the best skill to have, specifically the three. I mean, if you can shoot the basketball, you're going to keep bouncing around and getting looks no matter what. that's the biggest skill to have a premium at, in my opinion.
And I think the NBA game is good for him. There's more spacing in the NBA game. So I think that's going to excel. His guards and Auburn weren't really all that great. If he lands in the Magic, for example, he's got a Markelle Fultz who's a great creator. He's got Franz who's a great creator. So I think the NBA game suits him better. There are concerns about whether or not he can create his own shot. And I don't really stress on that for a couple of reasons. Devin Booker's an outstanding scorer. He's not necessarily the best one-on-one scorer. He's got a great jab step, has a great turnaround, mid-range. Jabari has those things. He's just not taking you off the dribble and driving into the paint. I understand that, right? He's not going to juke you and make you fall. I get that. But he's got a high release. You're not blocking a 6'10" jump shot from him. He's got a really good jab step. He's got a turnaround jumper. So he has the ability of, hey, give him the ball in the mid, and he'll be able to get a shot off and score. So, yes, he may not be Paolo Banchero, but he can get his own offense. And I think way too much is being made of, hey, he can't create his own shots. I beg to differ. I think he can. All you got to do is look at him a little bit more, and again, you'll see that out there. Klay Thompson doesn't create his own shot. He runs around like crazy, runs screens. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Right? Jab step, high release, great mid-range, but he's not taking you off the dribble. And that's essentially what Jabari, his lack of skill right now is. He just doesn't have that yet.
And even with that, well, I was going to say, even with that, it's not like I'm more concerned, I guess, if he's a guard, but even at a forward, like I'm not even expecting him to, have the ball in his hand to create his own shot that much anyway. Like you said, if he can get you a little bit or just be consistent with the jumper, he's not going to need to dribble around like Chris Paul and just find those pockets of space. It's not going to be Steph Curry where he has 3 defenders leaning on him at all times. But
that's what your point guard's for, right? That's exactly. Now, and I get it, right? Because from a Magic point of view, right, and this is where a lot of it's coming from, we need a go-to scorer. We don't have that. Well, we need a lot of things, right? And I think that's what, I joked about this the whole summer. I didn't want the number 1 pick. I wanted the number 3 pick. I wanted to whoever was left over for this exact reason, because the pressure of getting it right is so high.
Yeah.
Because there is no clear cut. If Cade Cunningham didn't work out, you can't really fault Detroit. He was the consensus number 1 pick, right? If Zion, for whatever reason, doesn't work out or didn't work out, you can't blame it. He was, without a doubt, the best player available.
Right.
If Jabari doesn't work out, or if Chet doesn't work out, or Paolo doesn't work out, there's going to be, you should have picked Paolo Banchero. It was so easy to see. No, it wasn't. It is a clear argument that all 3 guys are there, and all 3 of them offer something that the Magic desperately need. And you get into the issue when you start saying, well, he can't do this. Okay, well, Banchero's not a great shooter, right? Or he can't do this. Well, Chet probably weighs like 105 and is going to break in half. So it's a tough place to be in, which is selfishly, I wanted the number 3 pick. I did not want number 1. I'm happy we got it. You probably always want number 1. This was a year that I honestly did not want it. And what do you know? That's the year we get it.
Yeah, and I mean, well, like you said, I think from the fan base perspective too, just obviously because the Magic have pieces, and we'll get into them here in a little bit. Like they have a number of definitively good young players already, but there's always been, it's been that lack of the true number 1 guy. And so here you are in the position finally at number 1. What have we been saying all year? This is why, you win games, but they're going to lose a large majority of them. You want them to build the habits, but they also want them to be in position to get that number 1 talent. Here they are here. And like you said, the irony is that it's not clear cut. Switching to Chet Holmgren now, because, obviously key player, number 1 Gonzaga all year, lost in the final, but went on the run again. Big man there playing the center position. Like you said, just the instincts, the ability are off the charts. I think if there's any concern, obviously, is that he's way more, or certainly feels like way more of a project than the other 2. But to that token, it feels like his upside could be higher than anybody in this draft. Obviously, at least without even blinking or thinking hard about it, the biggest concern is going to be is that, he's going to have to bulk up. Like, I just imagine him in the paint right now against somebody like Joel Embiid or like a Nikola Jokic, where, these guys are at the peak of their powers, even a Giannis who may not be a true center, but it's like, look at what Giannis is now. But I think there were a lot of people, their games aren't the same, obviously, but, you look at what Giannis was when he got drafted. And then once he was in the NBA, in that off-season weight program and putting on all that weight, you see if that could happen with Chet Holmgren, what he could be. I think the other hand of that is you look at like a Hashim Thabit type where it just never really fills out and then it can't translate. I guess kind of where are you at in terms of, how concerned are you about him having to, because he is more of a project. I guess how concerned are you with him being a project at number one? Like, do you think this should be a pick that maybe a team that has a little bit more patience goes for? Or do you think his just ability and instinct and stuff that you can't teach out of a big man like that just kind of outweighs all the concern?
Yeah, my thing with Chet is if he weighed 220 pounds, he is without a doubt the number one pick.
Mhm.
There is absolutely no question. So that just speaks how great he is from a talent perspective. He's been the number one player in his class his entire life. He's won pretty much every international under 19 MVP award, right? It's been him and Victor. Like, he is the best player. There's just no question about that. The only question is his size. Your point about how can he guard Embiid and Jokic. Look at the Magic. That was Wendell Carter Jr. That wasn't Mo Bamba, right? And if he gets drafted by the Magic number one, that's going to be his role, right? He's going to play like a free safety in defense, right? He's going to float around, come from the defensive side, right, to help block the shot. But he's going to play on the perimeter. He's not going to play in the paint, right? They're not going to go against Jokic with him or any of these big boys. He's going to play on the perimeter. He's got the foot speed for it. So he's really a 3-4 more than a 5. And I think that's what he's going to be in the NBA, right? Kind of like what Porzingis should have been. That's always been my comp for him. I know people say that's a lazy comp. Look, the skill sets are there. The size is there, right? These are guys who are shot blockers who can, shoot the three, play defense. Problem with Porzingis is he broke down, right? He was playing big boys. He was playing a lot of center in New York. Body broke down. When he was playing, he was great. He just couldn't play a lot. And that's the concern with Chet. Giannis, you can see when he was young, though, he had massive shoulders. You can look at him and just see, yeah, he can pack on 30, 40, 50 pounds. That's not Chet. You look at his body, it is a slim body. He's not going to get much bigger than that. He may get stronger in the sense of just, tougher, but he's not going to put on 30, 40 pounds of muscle. That's his frame can't handle that. So that's the concern with him. But it's not a talent. I think he was used incorrectly in Gonzaga because of his size. He's got the skill set to take people off the dribble. He's got the skill set to get into the paint and finish. He's got the skill set to step back and shoot. He is a complete player. He just weighs 195 pounds. That is really the only complaint anyone can say about Chet. His weight. There's nothing wrong with this game. He has it all. He's got attitude. That's part of it as well. So I just think he's too thin, man. And if I'm a Magic person, I personally think from a talent perspective, he's number one. I think he's got the highest ceilings of them all. But with our medical history, I'm too hesitant to take Chet right now, just because I don't think the Magic need a home run. I think the Magic need not to miss. Chet's a home run, but if you miss, there goes your rebuild. I don't think they can afford to miss. I think you go for a single or a double, take Jabari, take Paolo, but I wouldn't go for Chet at the moment.
No, I'm kind of with you. And again, that's not because I completely agree. Like, and if this was flipped, because I do think Chet is not going lower than 2. Like, if he goes to OKC, he ain't getting past OKC. They've already basically, they've given every indication in the world that they're in love with this game. I don't think he's going to 3. Where I do think Paolo or Jabari Smith could kind of have a little more variance there. I mean, and I guess, again, it's different with Oklahoma City, right? Where I know that, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has kind of put the pressure on them a little bit. And I do think there's a little bit of truth to that, where it's like, hey, he's definitively good now. The theme of the Thunder has been they have all these picks, but they have been punting a lot. To that token, though, the Thunder do have a couple good players. And I think when you start to imagine a core of, like, if you keep Gilgeous-Alexander on board, you've got Josh Giddey, you add Chet Holmgren to him. So there's obviously some familiarity there as well. And then you have a guy like Lou Dort. They've got all these picks coming up. Like, they're kind of in the position, I feel like, a little more where, like you said, they could take on a project like Chet, because that is the thing, is he is more of a you know, I put it this way. I don't forecast Chet Holmgren to win Rookie of the Year, for example, but I do see a world where he ends up being the best player from the draft
Yeah,
because
that's a good point.
of his potential, like you said. But I kind of with you. I don't think that, and I think for what it's worth, the Magic don't take him number one. Like, I think they've already kind of made their decision here a little bit. But yeah, it sure feels like, you know, like you said, the potential is there. I hate to just keep going back to the weight, but it is. He's got to be able to bulk up.
Yeah, that is a concern, man. The NBA game is rugged. I'm with you with OKC. My theory on OKC is that they have no desire to win. I think they just want to keep collecting talent, hope to catch lightning in a bottle. They're the Florida Marlins of basketball. They're just going to keep bringing in young studs, try to catch lightning in the bottle, and make an awesome run, and then just sell off the pieces to the highest level. Their fan base there is incredible. They're never going to have a problem selling out arenas. So I don't think they really have a desire of building the team. I just think they just want to keep collecting assets, and they're doing that. That's exactly what they've been doing. Yeah. And they're just hoping to do the same thing they did originally when they landed, you know, Durant, Westbrook, Harden. They're hoping to get that again. I think Chet is the best fit there. He has no competition in front of him from a front side. There's just no one there anywhere near his level. And he's got great guard play. I'm a huge fan of Giddey. I think he's amazing. So I think he's a perfect fit, which makes sense why his agent wants him to go there, right? You want your player to go in the place that you're going to shine. And in Oklahoma City, 100% he's going to shine.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I was going to Paulo Banchero. Again, still could be number one. It sure seems like he's getting locked into that number 3 at Houston. It feels like with Paulo that there's a little bit less offensive upside compared to the other two. But I mean, this is a guy, again, you know, we talk about the most valuable skills in the NBA. It's being able to shoot the 3-pointer and being able to defend all 5 positions. And it sure feels like if nothing else, he's going to be able to defend 5 positions.
Yeah, he hasn't shown a lot of defensive ability, and that might have been just by choice or style. He has the skill set, right? I mean, he's 6'10", he's fit, athletic. He slimmed down since the end of the tournament, so he looks amazing. I mean, I've seen some of his videos and workout tapes. He looks fantastic. Offensively, though, he's the best right now. He's the best of getting his own shot. He's the best at making something out of nothing, which is a skill set that I keep going back to the Magic, right? Because I know eventually we'll leave him there, which is a skill set the Magic need. So Banchero to me is the best scorer out of the 3 right now. He may not have the ceiling of a Chet. He may not have the shooting ability of Jabari, but right now he's probably the best scorer. If they were all to start the NBA right now, I think Paulo Banchero easily scores 15, 17 points a game as a rookie. I don't think that, and that's probably lowballing him, depending on where he goes. So he definitely has the skills, and that's what's attractive about him, right? You can give him the ball, and at his frame, he can either blow by a guy who's bigger than him, or he's going to punish the little guy and make a shot over him. He's got that offensive game. That's a skill set that a lot of NBA teams seek. You need a guy that, end of the game, give him the ball.
Yeah.
Give him the ball, get me a bucket. Banchero has that skill set, and I think that's what makes him very, very attractive. I have my theories about the draft. We'll get about that later, but Banchero's a good player, really, really good offensive player right now. He just may not have the ceiling, like you said, of the other ones, where he may just peak early and he'll stay there, but he may just peak early because he's already ahead of the curve when it comes to those other 2 that we talked about.
Yeah, 100. I mean, it feels like his floor is somewhere around like a good NBA role player, which is a good floor to have. Like, that sounds probably worse than it actually is. Like, I think he and Jabari Smith have better floors than Chet Holmgren does, for example. I just think, again, it's about the ceiling, where I do think the other 2 have slightly higher ceilings than Paulo does. But again, it's about situations. I put it this way. I think he's either going 1 or 3. I don't think OKC, unless Chet Holmgren is off the board at 1 and Orlando goes with Holmgren at 1, then I think everything gets thrown into whack a little bit. But I don't really think there's a scenario where Holmgren slips to 3 again. I think he's locked into one of those top 2, which I guess gets us back to the Magic. We're going to talk about some of these.
I'm glad you said that, because that little segment you just said either goes 1 or 3. It's exactly what I'm thinking. But okay.
So let's get into it then right away, because we talked a little bit of Christian Wood on last episode. Go back and check out that with Justin and I if you want to hear our reactions. And But I mean, largely for me, it felt like the Rockets in a vacuum got fleeced because they didn't really get anything other than 26 back that is going to help them short term. I know they're a rebuilding team, but Christian Wood is a guy who gave you 18 and 10 last year. I know there are potentially attitude concerns, but at the same time, like the dude's a good NBA player, even with him having bounced around here for a little bit. I think it was a great pickup for Dallas. For Houston, you kind of wonder, and like, look, I know you want to have the flexibility. They have number 26 now, but that is the question is, you talk about teams that might move up and might be willing to move up here a little bit. It sure feels like Houston is high on that list or have the ability at least to, even if it's not making, because I think there are some people who will go, Houston may try to go for one, and they have the package to do it when you have 3 and you have 17 and you have 26. If the Magic get presented with that, it's tough. Like, unless you're really all in on Jabari Smith, if you're willing to go back, I mean, like you said, you have 3 picks at that point in a draft where there's not a clear number 1. So I understand the thinking in this draft maybe more than I would in others. But if nothing else, too, if you're Houston as well, like you could very well package 17 and 26 and get back into the early teens, get back. I mean, if you throw something else in there, maybe even into the top 10. So it sure does feel like there's a lot of flexibility there. You said already earlier on the show that if you kind of wanted Orlando to get number 3 to kind of take the suspense out of it. Like I've said a zillion times already, I don't think Chet Holmgren's getting past 2. So at that point, it would be Paolo or Jabari Smith. Do you see Houston making that trade? So you would like that? You'd be okay moving down?
Oh my God, I would love that. You will hear me screaming all the way to your house on Thursday if that happened, because here's my thing, and I'm trying to be a non-Magic bias right now, right? If I'm Houston, I'm going to think of Houston. I have Green, sensational scorer and shooter, right? Okay. I have KPJ, really underrated lead guard, right? He's got size, but he's a really good lead guard. I have Sengun. So full disclosure, Sengun is who I wanted last year in 8th. I loved his game. His post scoring is sensational. I just really thought he was a really good player. I'm in love with Franz. I'm so glad that it did not work out like I wanted to. I don't think anybody saw Franz being Franz, but no. Sengun is amazing. That's another reason why Houston got rid of Woods, right? Sengun has a ton of talent, part of that core. Does Banchero fit there with an alpha male scorer like Green and a post problem for a lot of people in Sengun? Probably not. Does Jabari fit there? He might be a good fit there, right? 3-point shooter, open the paint for Sengun. But you know what? That's also Green's and KPJ's domain. Does Chet fit there perfectly? A shot blocker who's going to help Sengun, who can't really block shots, but has a big body that can bang down low, can shoot from the outside to give lanes to open people. I think Chet is the perfect fit in that starting lineup for Houston. So back to your point, we know Chet's not getting past OKC.
No.
Magic take Chet. OKC goes with Jabari, right? Give a sniper to SGA and Giddey, right? Amazing fit there. Houston gets Banchero. Why isn't there a trade there for the Magic? The Magic can definitely use Banchero. Next to Franz, excellent forward. Next to Wendell Carter Jr., now you have Wendell Carter Jr. and Franz, both really good above defenders who can help Paolo when he can. Go-to scorer, which the Magic need, can develop that 3-point shot, right? He shot 33%, so it's not like it's horrible, right? Who's to say he can't get better? Even if he gets to like 35, 36%, that's above average. That's what we want. And you pick up another pick later on, with the Magic have been rumored that want to get back into the end of the first round. Why else, if you're Houston, do you just get another pick? You have 2 more picks next year. You want 5 picks in the next 2 years? Houston, for me, 100% is going to make a move. I'm hoping it's with the Magic, and I know a lot of Magic fam right now is getting very happy that I'm proclaiming Banchero goes to Orlando. But I think that is a great deal for both teams. Again, I'm trying not to be biased and see it the way I want it to happen. I just think it makes logical sense for both teams. And if you get Jabari, 100%, OKC's taking Chet. That's not even a question. So now how much can you get out of Houston?
Yeah.
Let's go back in time. That was the Chris Webber trade, right? The Magic wanted Anthony. Okay.
Yeah.
If
yeah,
they
you're
take
not
Anthony,
wrong.
100%. Philly's taking Chris Webber.
Yeah,
They're not
100%.
taking Bradley. They're taking Chris Webber.
Yeah, for sure.
Golden State is going to now, okay, we're good. Golden State comes, here's all these picks. Magic got exactly who they wanted, but they got additional assets.
Mm-hmm.
Boston wanted Tatum. They didn't want Fultz. They wanted Tatum. Philly jumps. I got the guy that I wanted and additional assets. Can that be Orlando this year? Can we get the guy that we want and additional assets? If your guy is Jabari, take him. Don't gamble.
Yeah, don't overthink
right?
it.
But if your guy is Banchero, I think there's a trade there and a trade that can be had that will benefit the Magic now and long term.
I think 100% if their guy is Banchero. If you look at, because the Magic, I do agree, have, I guess OKC does too, but it just feels like Chet, again, is that perfect fit there. But OKC's in that position too where they can kind of draft anybody right now.
Yeah.
Orlando's more or less, I don't think Orlando needs a guard, but the good thing is none of these guys are guards. I guess that's the best thing is you don't have to work. Like, it was the perfect draft for Orlando in that sense, is that they don't need another guard. They need a forward or they need a big. Obviously, any of these top three guys. I'm with, if Orlando is dead sold on Banchero and that's the guy they want, I think 150% they should move back in that case. Because you're right. I think you can get him at 3. And I think at that point you can get one, potentially another 2 first-round picks out of it, maybe add another guy into the roster. You know, the Magic have had some success drafting late where it's a win-win situation. Because like you said, if Jabari Smith is their guy, don't overthink it. Just take him at 1. This is what you were bad for all year. Like, cash your pick. Because I think Jabari Smith potentially adds that top-end talent as well. And I do think, again, his ceiling is a little bit higher to me than Paolo's is. Because that's really the thing with the Magic, is the Magic more, you know, if you really rank these 3 teams, I'd probably go Magic, Houston, OKC in terms of like who can make the jump. I'm calling it the Cleveland jump, because last year they went from a complete non-factor into the playoffs with all these young guys, right? I do feel like the Magic can kind of make that jump if they hit on this pick. I mean, you've got a great guard play in with Fultz now back healthy again. You've got Cole Anthony, who I think is going to come off the bench this year and give them the scoring they need.
Perfect role for him. Role for him. Yep.
Right. Spark off the bench, that Lou Williams type. You've got Jalen Suggs, who's going to have a full year, hopefully healthy now under his belt and start to develop a little bit more. Obviously, Franz was the unexpected success story last year. And even at the bigs, like the way Wendell Carter closed the year, depending on what happens with Bamba, but at least with Wendell, you have one of them for sure. You added Jabari Smith to that. And like, I'm not saying they're perfect and they're going to win the title next year, but there's a position where you could see them playing in or contending for the play-in game really sooner than later.
Oh, no, look, the Magic had a very good starting unit last year. You can look at all the metrics. Very good starting unit, good defensive team, right? There's just, the bench depth just wasn't there. We had injury. Fultz was gone pretty much all year. J.I. never even showed up. Look, you're hoping to have both guys next year. That alone, it's going to keep you out of the bottom of the East. Just those 2 additions.
Yeah.
Now you're going to add a number 1 overall pick. Look, like you said, they have the potential of making that jump. Wendell Carter Jr. ended last year on a tear. It was like 19-12 to end the year after the All-Star break. Like, ridiculous, right? So I think they definitely have the pieces. I do feel like they're a player away. They probably still need a lot more depth there, maybe some vet help. We can talk about that later. But I think that they have the potential to make that jump. Maybe not the Cleveland jump. I think they'll be at the play-in level. I think they can jump to, fighting for those last 2 spots, but they just need to not miss on the pick. That's been my message ever since number 1. Don't miss.
Yeah.
It's okay if you get a single and not a double. Do not strike out on this pick. Do not mess it up. Do not go for the fences. Chet Holmgren, to me, is swinging for the fensive. And look, if that's really what they want, I'm going to have to trust the front office. But it's just very nerve-wracking because you just see it. You just see the concerns from a physical standpoint. And, he's not Bamba. Bamba's another one. Massive shoulders. He was able to bulk up some. Chet doesn't have that. But if he came in, that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to take that Bamba role.
Yeah,
and I don't think the Magic need Chet as much as Oklahoma does.
No, I would agree with that too. Just, I mean, having Wendell there, again, rookie year was awesome. I think they got him on a great deal. Like, I think the contract was very team friendly. What he did last year. Yeah, he's
10
still
million.
he's still extremely young too. Like that's exactly the type of deal the Magic should be making. So in terms of, because you brought up Jonathan Isaac, and I'm a guy who I've been on Jonathan Isaac Island for a long time, and I got to be honest, Andy, we're out of supplies. Like the water supply has been poisoned. We're eating like random coconuts that we find on palm trees at this point, and that's about all we got. Like the kid is definitively great when he plays.
Yeah.
It's just he hasn't played here quite a bit. I mean, we haven't even seen him since the bubble, and even before then, he was coming off injury. Assuming the Magic get him back, I mean, at that point, that changes everything because he really boosts that team's ceiling just instantly himself. Like he was the crown jewel up until now of this rebuild, if you will.
Yeah.
Now at this point, am I crazy for thinking it's all just house money at this point? Like how much stock are you putting in Jonathan Isaac at this point?
I think, and I said this a few months back, Jonathan Isaac is no longer part of the future. If he comes back, it's a luxury. Everything that you do from now on has zero to do with Jonathan Isaac. You literally treat him like icing on a cake. Like he's out there. If he comes and does something, outstanding. If he doesn't, who cares? Like you cannot rely anything on Jonathan Isaac because he's been gone a long time.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt on the talent. Look, I'm a fan of Jonathan Isaac. I'm on the other side of the island with you. I'm finding stuff that washes on shore and see if there's anything in there. Like that's where I'm at. But I think you just don't rely on him. You don't put any stock on him coming back and being healthy. And if he does, amen. Like awesome. We just got an amazing player. And if he does come back healthy, I don't think it's fair to think he's going to be at the level that he was. Right? It's two serious knee injuries. He may not be the same individual. So then, can you sell him high? Right? Do you bring him in, play him 20, 30 games, sell high, and try to get something out of it? His contract is built tremendously, right? He's got like almost no guarantee money in the coming years. So kudos to the front office for that. So I think that's my approach on John Isaac. He's a luxury. He's not a need. And you treat him as such. I'm thinking the Magic have two big holes in the starting lineup: power forward and shooting guard. That's really my opinion. I think Suggs is a point guard of the future. He can play too, and I think he will. Cole Anthony is a sixth man. But I think if you're looking to really try to compete next year, those are your two biggest holes, because I don't take Jonathan Isaac for real.
Yeah, it's just, and it is a damn shame because again, when he's been healthy, he really has shown all the flashes, and the offensive game was starting to come along. That's the biggest thing, is that you always knew when he got drafted that he was going to be a good defender, but it's just the offensive game was starting to develop. Yeah, it's interesting because if he gives you 30 good, healthy games and he looks like Jonathan Isaac, like he looks like even flashes of what he used to be, you probably could sell high. And it does feel like maybe even get a first round back at that point. It's a little tougher with the contract, but like you said, not as many guarantees. So it's a little more movable than it probably looks on paper. But yeah, at this point, I mean, obviously, again, he comes back, it totally changes the ceiling. But given how the rebuild is, and I think again, just before we get off the Magic, it's just kind of why with the Chet pick, it's harder to sell is just with the fan base. The reality is that since Dwight Howard got traded in 2012, outside of two playoff appearances, it's been a lot more down than up. It's been a lot more, guys who have panned out elsewhere, guys who just may have not fit the timeline where, this time around now, it sure feels like they have the foundation to build something for real, something that can achieve a level of sustained success that this franchise hasn't seen in a little bit. I mean, obviously, since they came into the league, incredibly successful the first 25 years. I mean, 2 finals appearances, multiple runs.
I get in arguments all the time, right, about how bad the Magic franchise is, blah, 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 blah. It's like, look, I challenge anyone. Compare us for the last 30 years they've been on, right? 89, I think is our first year. Compare that time frame to any other franchise. We're middle of the pack, if not higher.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
what has Minnesota done? What have the
big
New York Knicks done in the time that the Magic have been?
Sixers guy. We had the whole process for as
what
much as we've
have the Sixers done?
We haven't made the conference finals since 01.
One finals appearance. In the time the Magic have been in existence, you've had one finals appearance. We've had 2.
Yeah.
Right? What has New York done? One finals appearance. We've had 2. What has Minnesota done? Nothing. right? Before a couple of years ago, what had Milwaukee done?
Yeah.
What had Toronto done?
Yep.
So I get it, right? Last years have been super dark, but you can't just look at it in a vacuum. The Magic as a franchise have been more successful than not, and I do feel like this time around they have a much better plan going forward. Don't rush it.
Yeah.
Don't rush it.
They
Don't
always
make
rush
a
it during
huge
the Rob
trade.
Hennigan era.
That's what happened with Ron Hennigan. Look,
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of
always,
him. I
every
think
time.
he had many errors. One of them being hiring Jacques Vaughn as a coach. I thought that was horrible. But that trade to try to accelerate the process, that backfired.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. He was desperate, right? Rumors were he was about to get canned. Hey, you need to do something or you're gone. And he messes up, right? He spends all that money on Biyombo, then makes the trade. Like, horrible. But that's the problem when you panic. And I don't think Hammond and Weltman have that problem, right?
No.
They've had the conversations. They've got their extension. They're vets. They've been around a long time. I don't think they're going to rush this process, and I think they're going to be okay.
So going back to the draft now, a
Mm-hmm.
couple of guys, Keegan Murray specifically is somebody that's risen late. Jaden Ivey's another guy who's kind of bounced around the top 3 discussion. But when you look at the top 10, just really the first round,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what type of guys do you think can have immediate success? Who do you think kind of stands out to you here beyond this top 3? Who do you think is really going to translate well?
Yeah, some of the guys you mentioned, Ivy with his one-on-one skill set, right off the bat, he's going to have success in the NBA. I'm a huge fan of Murray. Huge fan of Murray. Like, I have him 4 and like just underneath the top 3. I think he's excellent. There's nothing really wrong with his game at all. I'm a huge fan of Johnny Davis. I think Johnny Davis is a stud. I think for all the people that were in love with Book Night last year, how do you not have the same feelings, if not more, for Johnny Davis? He's a legit 6'6", got measured, right? Best mid-range game in the entire draft. Has one-on-one skill, has heart and grittiness. I'm a huge fan of Johnny Davis.
It's the shot. That's the only worry is the 3-point shot. He shot 30% from beyond the arc, but everything else you said, I'm with you. If he can even just bump that up a little bit to like 5 percentage points with everything else he can do.
He's DeMar DeRozan-ish. He's that kind of player. Obviously, he's not the elite mid-range. DeMar DeRozan is probably one of the greatest mid-range shooters ever. But Johnny Davis, as a rookie, he's up there, man. I just think someone's going to get a nice little steal out of Johnny Davis wherever he's drafted. He's projected to go somewhere around 10. He's great. I was big on Benedict Mathurin. Again, another 6'6", explosive athlete who shoots tremendously. Like, there is definitely a place for him in the NBA. He's the kind of player that I see some kind of playoff team trying to go up for. And I know we're going to talk about that later. So he's another really good one that's out there. Those are probably my favorite 4 players that are not going top 3, the 2 that you mentioned, and Davis and Mathurin.
Well, and so we talked about Houston moving up. A couple of other teams, have multiple picks in this draft, and with it being a lot less locked in, it feels like we could see some movement here. I think Houston, like you said, with 3 first-round picks, they're going to be the number 1 team to maybe make a move on anybody's list. Because even if it's not the grand swing for number 1, 17 and 26, you could move up for sure. Who else do you think has the potential to move up here?
I think San Antonio. San Antonio has 3 picks. They have a lot of 1-year deals, a lot of young guards. I don't know if they want to go through a real rebuild. Pop is getting up there. I don't know how much longer he's going to coach. Yeah. Or if they want to try to package that and go for something big. I just don't know what big name is out there, right? I don't think Utah's going to trade Donovan Mitchell. I think if they do anything, it's going to be Rudy. I don't think Rudy's a San Antonio savior, so I don't think they package that for him. But I like San Antonio to make something. I don't think they're going to bring in 3 rookies. Memphis has 2 late round first picks. They need veteran scoring off the bench. I think that was their biggest flaw in the playoffs. You saw it. Big drop off in the bench. Look, they're a trade partner for the Magic, right? I'm gonna argue that, right? You can get a T. Ross, pick up maybe the 32 pick overall, which is in the second round, no guarantee money, and give up one of your 22 or your 29 picks to the Magic. Magic move into the first round. You get some veteran help, and really you move back 8 spots.
Right.
So that's what Charlotte, 13 and 15. They desperately want to make the playoffs. They want to be a playoff team. This whole Atkinson situation kind of messes me up because I really thought they were heading somewhere. I felt that was the right hire. Now I don't know what they do. Do they go back to Mike D'Antoni and go, "Hey, sorry, things didn't work out." So I think that Memphis, San Antonio, I definitely feel like they're going to make a move. And I feel like Charlotte has to. If they want to be in the playoffs, I think they have to. Teams that don't have picks, Boston, they don't have a first round pick. Utah doesn't have a first round pick. So is there a deal there with Charlotte? Charlotte needs a center where, hey, here are a couple of picks. Here's some players. I want Rudy. Pair that up, and they're desperate to make the playoffs. They want to be a playoff team, not just sneaking in. So I think Charlotte's one to watch. Toronto doesn't have a first round pick. But they want to move up. Probably not. I think they're cautious with their cap. But yeah, man, I think Memphis, San Antonio, and Charlotte are probably the three most likely to make a move.
It does feel like more teams have multiple firsts this year. I mean, even like OKC has 12 and 30 that they could move to get back in if they want to get up in the 10 again, potentially. San Antonio, like you said, having that combo of the 220 picks and then having 9, they definitely could put something together. My Sixers at 23, they have the pick with Brooklyn choose to punt it to next year because of the Ben Simmons trade. So they have that pick. I can see the Sixers moving that and trying to maybe get a vet, get somebody to add off the bench. Yeah, Charlotte is it really this Kenny Atkinson thing has thrown it in. And because, like, I was completely with you and we talked about it on the pod. I love that hire. Like Kenny Atkinson was a guy who, when he left Brooklyn, it was kind of weird to me. I felt like he had done a great job there. Obviously, tremendous assistant on the Warriors bench, just went out and got the ring. And it feels like they won the title and then something clicked. You have to wonder. I mean, the theory already is, did he and Steve Kerr have a handshake agreement? Is he getting ready as Steve begins to transition and move on to take over the reins at Golden State? I want to say and put more stock in that theory, but it feels like we see that all the time and then it doesn't end up happening. I know Popovich is another one too, where, we've heard the rumors of him hanging it up. Obviously, this particular offseason, people are already tabbing Quinn Snyder as the replacement for whenever he decides to start coaching again. It does, man. Right before draft, like the way that Charlotte found out is brutal. And like, if Atkinson wanted to stay, so be it. But like you said, I thought that was the right hire for them. I thought he would have, like, Charlotte just needs to grow up a little bit. And I think Kenny Atkinson would have been a good growing up coach. Now, I still love on paper the D'Antoni LaMelo Ball fit. It sure feels like
LaMelo's going to average 30 points, 75 assists, and like 18 rebounds with D'Antoni. And I thought that's the route that we're going to go. I thought they're going to go D'Antoni. It's the fancy hire, right? LaMelo's going to showcase. You're going to make him happy. You're going to throw a bunch of money at him, and you're going to be able to keep your star. Like, I thought that was going to be their mind process. But I felt Atkinson was the right hire from a team success perspective. They make the right hire, and like you said, Golden State. I personally believe the rumors, right? I personally believe that, yes, look, man, Kerr is probably going to be retiring soon. And I can see that. Kerr has had tremendous amount of success as a coach, as a player, as a GM, right? People forget he put that Phoenix team together with Amari and Nash. So I think that is probably the route. And it's like, hey, man, I'm probably going to be here until my end of my contract. Brown's gone, so I think you're probably going to be the best deal. Can't make you any promises, but hey, you rather be with Golden State or you rather go with Charlotte?
Right.
That's
so you got an aging Steph Curry. Steve Kerr can get that 10th ring so he can fill out both his fingers and then ride off into the sunset. I mean, that's the thing with Golden State too, is Golden State is not just appealing, obviously, because they won the title and you have those 3 guys who realistically especially Steph, but they all, as long as Klay Thompson can shoot the basketball, should age pretty well, even if he's a bench guy. But it's the young core. Like, that's what keeps Golden State scarier for the long term.
Kuminga, Moody. If Wiseman ever wakes up, like,
right,
I don't know. As far as I know, I think he's a rumor. I don't think he's real.
Yeah, he's a concept. He's in the Jonathan Isaac territory to me at this point. It's like James Wiseman is fully, and Isaac we at least had seen on the court for a little bit. Like Wiseman, that's what's crazy and more impressive. I've said this a couple of times, but Golden State bricking that number 2 pick essentially, and it's not even that they didn't even get a good rotation player. It's not that they didn't get a star there. It's that they got a guy who's giving them nothing right now. Like Looney is
But
essentially
they
playing the
could
role that
afford that,
Wiseman was supposed to be.
right? They could afford that mistake. And I think
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with the pick. Everybody was like, oh, they should have gone for LaMelo. No,
No, the pick
they
was
could
fine.
afford to go for the home run in Wiseman, who would have
Yeah.
complemented that starting five tremendously if he was healthy and lived up to the hype. And for all we know, look, the guy can come back next year and be serviceable, but Golden State could afford that risk
Yeah.
more so than a team like an Oklahoma City. Well, I think Oklahoma City can be patient. I think Houston and Orlando are almost in the same board. Like, look, we need to start seeing some success.
Yeah.
But yeah, Golden State, that was the right pick. It didn't work out, but who cares? They won a ring.
And even if he becomes even if he just becomes a serviceable number 5, I mean, that's the thing is Golden State has never really had that traditional big. Draymond is that hybrid. And then, I mean, it's been Looney if they've been having him play minutes. But realistically, it's been smaller, big lineups, even when they've had Otto Porter. And that's why, I mean, Windhorse's checkbook comment was ridiculous just because they won around the margins. Like Jordan Poole's a G League guy. Gary Payton II was getting bounced around on 10-day contracts. Like these are, those aren't picks. That's not a checkbook win. Like those guys are all going to be due for money, and that's going to be, that's going to be the question: is how much can you retain now with them having showed out the way they did in the finals? I mean, especially Peyton, what a breakout for him. But I mean, yeah, that's credit their scouting department and everything they've done. I do feel it'll be interesting because if Charlotte doesn't go D'Antoni, that's the thing is this is a situation where I almost feel like they could stumble into something accidentally great. Look at like Sam Cassell, for example, has been getting a lot of buzz recently. I think he's a guy who's worthy of a head coaching job here. Like there are a number of assistants around the board. The Lakers are keeping Will Handy, which is huge. I thought Will Handy would be up for a coaching gig here sooner than later. But there are other options that this may force them to look at. If they go with D'Antoni, it's not the end of the world. Again, I think that fit. And in terms of stylistic, like league pass ranking, they go right to the top if they bring D'Antoni in. But I'm with you. I'd like to see something just a little more, sustainable. We haven't seen that Hornets franchise. Like they've always just kind of been floating around the edges, right? Like they had a couple of years with Kemba where they were making the playoffs, but they weren't really going on a run or anything. Like you want to see them build the foundation and truly have some sustained success there.
Yeah, Barenga was good. You didn't fire him to go for Cassell. I like Cassell. I think he needs to have his shot already. He's probably long overdue. But if you fire Barenga, it wasn't to hire Cassell. It was to hire Atkinson or Mike D'Antoni or someone who's going to bring in some clout. And unfortunately, Cassell just doesn't have that because he hasn't gotten his opportunity. I don't think they're going to go young coach. That's my just hunch. Last time a coach backed out, was that Billy Donovan with the Magic? I honestly can't remember.
Yeah, it might have been. It might have been, honestly. I'm trying to think. Like, did I pull out that last minute?
Yeah. Stan was going to Sacramento. Worked out great for us. So
yeah.
Maybe the same will happen to Charlotte. I hope so, right? I think they have a young, fun team. But yeah, they need a stronger presence there. And I like James Barenga, but I think they need a stronger presence there. And that's going to be tough because I really felt Atkinson was like the perfect coach. Quinn Snyder's not going to go anywhere. You're not going to get him.
Not this late, no.
I just don't know. I don't know where they go from here. It may be D'Antoni and try to save face.
It's brutal. I mean, they found out via Woj bomb. Apparently,
is Vogel a possibility there?
Yeah, I mean, I like Frank Vogel again. I always felt like he was undersold big time, like everywhere he's been, like even with the Lakers. Like blaming Frank Vogel for the Lakers mess last year was ridiculous. Like that roster is so poorly constructed that there's only so much you can do. Now, I will say I don't think Frank Vogel at times necessarily optimized that roster. And so I think there was a degree of fault there, but not, of course, the degree that they're making him. And Frank Vogel's a guy who, I don't blame him for poor roster construction in Orlando. He was extremely successful in Indiana when he coached the Pacers with Paul George. Obviously, won the ring with Lakers and LeBron and AD a couple years ago. So, he's somebody that could definitely, if he's interested, that I think, certainly a great defensive coach. He would lock them in on that side of the ball, and maybe in that regard, he's a good placeholder. But man, at this point, I don't feel like Frank Vogel is my splashy hire. But then again, maybe the Hornets shouldn't be looking for a splashy hire at this point.
Yeah, maybe they shouldn't, but I think that's what they want. I think they want a name. They want to give LaMelo a reason to stay. I mean, that he's got what, 2 more years before he can truly become a full free agent, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's in the back of their heads. We need to do something to be successful, to make him look good, so that he wants to stay here. Because if not,
Yeah.
that bad boy is he's going to Hollywood. He's going to LA. He's going to go to New York. He's going to go somewhere big where he can maximize his brand. And, you can't blame him. So if he's
No.
not winning, he might as well go make money.
And it is an attractive job with LaMelo. Like, they have good players. Obviously, LaMelo Ball, we mentioned Miles Bridges, a huge breakout last year, like one of the most improved players in the league. So there are reasons to believe in the Charlotte core. Like, they
PJ
won some games
Washington,
last
Terry
year.
Rozier. I mean, they
Yeah.
have good pieces there. They definitely need a big, which is why I mentioned that Utah possibility earlier in the show. It just seems like a good fit. Do they have the pieces for it? I don't know, but that is definitely a good fit there. Next to a player like LaMelo, they just lob it up there for him because
Yeah.
we know Rudy can't score. So
Well, and even if it's not just the Rudy thing, I mean, the other guy that we're kind of watching over the draft too is the other name to keep an eye on, not just Utah's DeAndre Ayton. Like, we have still a lot of uncertainty there for everything that it sure seems like he's not going back to Phoenix. It feels like that situation is just done and over with. Um, I mean, the question is, of course, are you going to max DeAndre Ayton? And that's what I think the teams are going to have to decide within themselves internally. I think there are plenty of arguments for and against it. I'm slightly leaning towards the against outside of Phoenix. But if you take the swing on DeAndre Ayton, I understand it at this point. You wonder with his contract looming, I guess, which has it like it feels like Gobert would be cheaper because of the contract, right? Like Rudy Gobert, you're getting on a max deal already at this point, where Ayton you would have to sign, and he's a lot younger, a little bit better offensively for Ayton, obviously a lot better defensively for Gobert. But for teams that the big market is certainly interesting with those two lingering around.
yeah, and I think that's what makes. And I hate to go back to Bamba, but I think that's what makes Mo Bamba such an interesting off-season player this year, right? He can get a qualifying offer or restricted free agent. If you miss on Ayton, you're going to throw big money at Mo. Like that's just factual. Look, Mo had 10 and 8 last year, shot 38%, only played 25 minutes per game. He wasn't playing a lot of minutes. I think
I
people
watched Mo
forget.
put 39 on the Sixers one time. Like, they lost that game, but like the potential is still there.
Yeah.
I'm lower on Mo Bamba, like you are too. Like, I just have seen
God,
a
yeah.
lot at this point. But I will say, on the other hand, you can get Mo Bamba a lot cheaper, and at least he's young and there's some upside. Like, I don't think Mo Bamba is going to be the type of decision that breaks your franchise if it goes well.
If I'm the Phoenix GM and I can get Ayton for 25 mil, that's probably what he's going to cost, right? He's going to go near max. Well, I can get Mo Bamba for 13 or 14. I will go with Mo.
I would too. And that's what's
Shoots
crazy.
the three. We all see what CP3 can do with a jumping center who can shoot threes. Like, for crying out loud, he's made people's careers. Put him in that Phoenix squad. I will argue he is a better fit in Phoenix than Ayton.
Yeah.
Right? And he's going to cost me $8 million less. 100% I'd rather go with Mo. Golden State, can you afford Mo? Because put Golden State on that team. Again, back up, leave the paint open. You can block shots, something they don't have. So there's a lot of teams that I think Mo is a good fit for. Ironically, I don't think Orlando's it. That's the sad part. We have him. I think he's a talented player. It has never been a question about his talent.
Yeah.
It's always been a question about his heart, his desire to be great. You just don't see it. And maybe on a playoff team that we can just kind of, do the little minimum things that he can do, I think he'll find success. I don't think he'll ever find success in Orlando.
Yeah, and that's what I think it kind of is. I think the boat has sailed there, but I'm with you. I mean, and I don't know if that says more about Ayton or more about Mo, but I would. Like, I'm at a point there, and maybe this is just my stance on centers, but there aren't many centers that I'm giving big money at this point. Like, that's just the way I think the NBA is going. There are obviously exceptions. Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, take all the money, like all of it, and run with it. But I mean, largely as a whole, I think you can. I think you can get some It's just cheaper. I think you can fill out the bench.
Sure.
Like I think Bamba would be a really good replacement in Phoenix. But I'm excited for this draft. I'm really excited to see all the movement that could potentially happen and just the uncertainty. It reminds me of the NFL draft this year, where it just with it because the NFL draft this year didn't have any of those top quarterbacks, and so this year it just feels like it's more open. And for there are a lot of teams that are going to make deals here, and a lot of guys who could be moving. I mean, this is the NBA. We know what free agency is at this
It's
point, but
it's a deep draft. It may not be, it doesn't have a consensus number one or something like that, but it is a deep draft. You're going to get some valuable players on 22, 24, 26 pick, players that are going to make an impact on your team. So I think that is what's so interesting about this draft and why so many teams want to get into the first round. Some of these playoff teams that don't have picks, they desperately want to get up there because you're going to get a valuable player in this draft. And I think that makes for a very interesting draft value and a lot of teams with multiple picks. I think that's going to be a very fun draft this year where a lot of moves are made.
yeah, no doubt about it. Very fun podcast as well. Shout out to my man Andy Jordan joining us. Follow him on Twitter at Andy Magic Minute. Get all your Magic reacts as well as draft talk there. We're going to be, we're always talking hoops. You can always listen to Andy as well, at least once a week on Live, Local, and Loud, 7 to 9 on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. Watch the podcast on YouTube. You can find the podcast anywhere: Stitcher, Google Play Store, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon Music. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us. Full disclosure, Andy's a big foodie as well. If you need a spot to look for in Orlando, the greater Central Florida area, Andy's got you covered. We're eating burritos on Wednesday, man. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait. I was just talking to Nick the other day. So, yeah, I'm excited about Wednesday. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, a lot of burritos to be crushed. Got some hot chicken in the past. But, yeah, stay tuned. We'll be back later this week with some post-draft, and we'll catch you guys next time.